Thank you for joining us for this look at some of the best stories from KPBS News this week. I'm John Carroll. Coming up, Adams Avenue Unplugged. We have a preview of this weekend's event, bringing live music to businesses in Normal Heights. The view from Carlsbad Boulevard might be changing, why the city is debating whether to move the road to higher ground. And the insurer of last resort. Homeowners in San Diego's fire zones tell us about the struggle to have their homes covered. It has been 2 months since San Diego County closed its Migrant Transit Center. KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis says since then, Border Patrol agents have released thousands of migrants into the streets of San Diego.
The first bus comes at 7 a.m. Every morning, 7 days a week, Border Patrol agents drop off hundreds of migrants at the Adams Avenue Transit Center in San Isidro. And the buses just keep on coming. Every day, somewhere between 400 and 600 migrants come to San Diego. This includes people from all over the world. A Venezuelan migrant hoping to connect with her brother in Denver. A tired Ecuadorian business owner who has been on the road for 2 months. A Colombian woman with in-laws up in Utah. Maria Delia Sacorando is from Guatemala. She says it was difficult to leave her adult children and grandkids back home.
Triste, para mí triste porque dejé mis hijos, dejé mis nietos.
She owned a beauty salon for 40 years, but local gangs demanded protection payments. She had to shut it down when she could no longer afford the extortion fees.
Demasiado y no se podía.
Sacorando has a daughter in Los Angeles, and she just needs a little help getting there. And that's the situation most migrants find themselves in. More than 90% of them plan to reunite with family and friends in other parts of the country. While they're in San Diego, they mostly need a place to charge their phones and make travel arrangements. And for the last 2 months, the only people offering help to these migrants are volunteers, mutual aid groups, and nonprofit organizations. They say that they are getting zero support from any level of government.
We're not seeing the county drop off water anymore. We're not seeing direct coordination with the county or the city of San Diego. We're not seeing even communication about how they might offer support.
Pedro Rios is with American Friends Service Committee. He says elected officials have a responsibility to help migrants who have sacrificed so much to get here.
To then arrive in the U.S. and not have any type of welcoming feeling by county officials or by local officials just is unacceptable.
San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria declined to respond to these criticisms. Back in San Isidro, one of the volunteers, Catalina, has a welcome speech prepared in Spanish.
No hay Wi-Fi, no hay baños públicos, no hay donde cargar los celulares.
She doesn't sugarcoat it. She says there's nothing for the migrants here. No bathrooms, no shelter, nowhere to charge their phones. Their best bet, she tells them, is to go to the airport. Taxis cost $75.
La manera más directa es con los taxistas que están aquí en la esquina, cobran $75, pero caben 4 por carro, ¿ok?
Or they can take the trolley. Catalina walks dozens of people to the Adams Avenue trolley stop. She tells them to go to Old Town, where they can take a free shuttle to the airport. And she even gives them maps, where X marks the spot.
Y se van a bajar en esta parada que se llama Old Town. En el mapa es la X, ¿ok?
Caroline Duran takes one of those maps and hops on the trolley.
Dejar el país no es fácil, pero también te traes una mochila pequeña llena de sueños y de esperanza.
She says leaving Venezuela was not easy. She's going to the airport and plans to meet up with her brother in Denver. Catalina then walks back to help other migrants. She and other volunteers have been doing this every day for the last 2 months, ever since San Diego County's Migrant Transit Center closed because it ran out of funding. But there are signs of hope. San Diego County received $19 million from the federal government to help this migrant population. Kate Clark is with Jewish Family Service. She says it's a big increase from last year.
That this federal allocation is really a victory for our region.
Advocates want to see San Diego County working with local service providers to create a lasting migrant welcome program. Clark says organizations like hers have been doing this for years.
I think that this moment, this inflection point is really an opportunity and would really expect that the County of San Diego, convene organizations that have this expertise to help inform our region's plan and next steps so that it really is best positioned for success and a clear path forward.
But so far, elected officials have not reached out. County Supervisor Nora Vargas' office did not respond to a question asking why. A county spokesperson says staff are working very hard to determine the best roadmap going forward, but it's too early to say specifically how that money will be allocated. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
This next story is part of NPR's special series this week on historical markers. A crowdsourced online database includes nearly 400 entries for San Diego County. But as Amitha Sharma reports, only a few of those tell the millennia-old history of Native Americans.
The tranquility near Antonio Garra's grave on a recent morning belies the Native American resistance leader's violent end. He was convicted of murder, theft, and treason in January 1852, and soon after,
they took him out, blindfolded him.
Kumeyaay Community College President Stan Rodriguez is standing next to Garra's final resting place inside El Campo Santo Sanctuary in Old Town San Diego, a historical marker. He describes what came next.
They walked him up the street to this freshly dug grave, had him go on his knees. His hands were tied behind his back, and he said, "I wish to apologize for the things that I've done in the past, and I wait to hear the same from you." He didn't hear it. They shot him. So that fell in. He was buried.
The execution is a snapshot of the cruelty and injustice local tribes endured, first under the Spaniards who came to stay in 1769 and started the San Diego Presidio. The tribes were forcibly converted. Families were split and turned into servants. Rodriguez says the Americans continued the brutality. The first governor of California, Pete Burnett, issued bounties on the heads of Native Americans.
50 cents for a child, $2.50 for a woman, $5 for men. Over $1.5 million was paid off. Our numbers prior to California becoming a state were over 85% Native to 15% non-Native. Within 20 years, the numbers had dropped by over 80%.
Before the invasions, the Kumeyaay and other tribes lived here for millennia, or since time immemorial, as Rodriguez puts it.
We see this place all the time. No, but very few people realize there was a very large Kumeyaay village here. And there were communities all through San Diego, all through the Bay, all around on the Silver Strand, Coronado, National City, and downtown.
He says men, women, and children in the villages rose before the sun. They'd make tule boats to fish. They'd harvest salt, torrey pine nuts, and plant oak trees. They did control burns. They created mosaic patterns. But scan a historical marker database, and there is scant mention of the rich and sophisticated Kumeyaay history. The database is assembled by the public and has 375 entries for San Diego County.
Crowdsourcing and those kinds of sites are a really good reflection of American culture and how we look at cultures.
San Diego historian and archaeologist Richard Carricos says academia is working to correct the perception that history begins when the Europeans arrived. The database does include markers for an old Kumeyaay natural kitchen, pictographs, and an ancient Kumeyaay village, Ponhe, but it omits the tribe's at least 4,000-year-old history in what is today called the Ramona Grasslands Preserve.
This is a Kumeyaay village site called Pamu, which probably means gathering place or place of the singers, because they had a lot of music and singing in their cultures.
The area had 2 springs, a female creek and a male one. Carricos says if a Kumeyaay woman wanted to have a son, she would drink from the male spring and vice versa. The land's oak trees' acorns were a major food source, and they traded shell beads.
If you could go back in time, you would see huts sitting out here called wa. That's the Kumeyaay word for them. You would see huts sitting out here. We're in an area where they were doing a lot of tool manufacturing, and they were importing lithic material, stone material, from as far away as Mammoth, Coso Hot Springs, and from Baja California, and from the Salton Sea area.
Steve Benegas is chair of the museum committee at the Verona Cultural Center and Museum. He says leaving out whole histories of ethnic groups, whether in databases or classrooms, robs people of knowledge and understanding of who we are collectively as human beings.
They're missing a big chunk of humanity, a big chunk of spirituality, a big chunk of time.
He adds the omissions not only doom us to repeat history, but keep us in the dark about who and what remains. A sign in the museum is a reminder of that message. It says of the Kumeyaay, quote, "We're still here." Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
KPBS is investigating the FAIR plan, also known as California's home insurance of last resort. Scott Rodd says the plan is now the only option for many homeowners, especially in rural communities like East San Diego County.
So I'll just come down in here and I'll take out the stuff that I don't want.
Leave the stuff you do.
Just make a space around it so that when I weed whack, I can weed whack all around it without taking this out, and I'll just leave it there.
Paul Felber's yard keeps him busy.
What I really wanted to focus on was trying to restore as much as possible a native plant community.
There's a certain Zen ritual to it all. Yank out the non-native mustard and cat's ear plants, nurture the budding penstemons and California lilacs. Come next year, do it all over again. Yet Felber faces an added complication in his botanical quest.
I live in a high fire risk. In fact, I live in extreme high fire risk area.
That leaves the bespectacled, ponytailed retiree walking a tightrope, trying to foster Mother Nature's indigenous beauty without building a tinderbed around his home. Felber and his wife cut back much of the vegetation bordering their house and have spent more than $60,000 to harden it against wildfire. But insurers weren't impressed. In the last 5 years, he was dropped by 2 different companies.
Nobody else was available to insure our property, so I ended up on the California Fair Plan, and I'm paying about $5,500.
That yearly payment is up from $1,500 just a few years ago. It's an increasingly familiar story. Homeowners forced onto California's safety net insurance plan as private insurers continue to pull back in California. From 2018 to 2022, the number of Fair Plan policies in San Diego County tripled to nearly 17,000, according to data from the Department of Insurance. Statewide, the number of policies recently eclipsed 375,000. Everyone agrees, from state regulators to insurance companies to consumers, that this trend is bad news. Even Fair Plan officials say so.
There's not a lot of options out there for people, and so instead the Fair Plan is quickly moving to be the first resort from a lot of people.
Victoria Roach is the president of the Fair Plan. She declined multiple interview requests, but recently testified before a committee in the state assembly.
It's been a tremendous increase in a very short period of time.
State leaders mandated the creation of the Fair Plan in the 1960s. It's run by an association of insurance companies that do business in California. It's supposed to be a backstop for people who can't find insurance. The plan is often costly and doesn't provide comprehensive coverage. So the goal has always been to move people back into the traditional insurance market as quickly as possible. But these days, many homeowners find themselves stuck there for years.
The growing Fair Plan is really what keeps me up at night.
Ricardo Lara is California's insurance commissioner. Insurance companies are retreating in California, in large part due to the growing risks from climate change and wildfires. Allstate and State Farm have stopped writing new policies. Farmers, meanwhile, set strict limits on the number of homes they'll cover. And just last week, 2 smaller insurance companies announced they plan to leave California altogether. As a result,
it puts the highest risk properties into one pool. Getting people off the Fair Plan and back into a competitive market is one of my top goals.
Last year, Governor Gavin Newsom issued an executive order urging LATA to address California's growing insurance crisis. The insurance commissioner's proposal is called the Sustainable Insurance Strategy.
It is really the largest insurance reform in more than 30 years.
The plan would require insurance companies to write more policies in areas threatened by wildfire, which should help move people off the Fair Plan. In exchange, the companies would have more leeway to justify rate increases, such as using forward-looking catastrophe models to assess climate and fire risks. Insurance companies have expressed initial support for the proposal. Rex Frazier is president of the Personal Insurance Federation of California.
Companies do believe that the strategy would enable them to at least stabilize and for some grow again in California.
But consumer advocates are skeptical. Carmen Belber is executive director of Consumer Watchdog.
Many California homeowners are really hurting. They're facing big rate increases or the threat of non-renewal from their insurance company.
Belber wants to see more concessions from insurers to protect consumers from unnecessary or excessive rate hikes. LADA aims to finalize the new regulations by the end of the year. Felber, the Alpine resident, says he'll believe the change when he sees it.
It leaves me hanging out in the wind, while from my perspective, corporate America and government try to come to some agreement, which usually, in my experience, takes a long time.
Scott Rodd, KPBS News.
It's not just home insurance. The car insurance industry is also going through some significant changes. KPBS has been reporting on this topic in recent weeks and months. You can stream those stories anytime you'd like on the KPBS YouTube page. That was one of our most popular stories this week. Here are some others. San Diegans feel the impact of 99-cents only store closures. Firefighters contain a fire that heavily damaged the landmark Oceanside Pier. And this story from Alexander Nguyen, as city leaders in Carlsbad debate whether to move part of Carlsbad Boulevard to higher ground.
Scenic Carlsbad Boulevard abuts the coast. It's a beautiful drive where you can see pelicans flying by and gliding past surfers.
I mean, is it beautiful or is it beautiful?
But the road, also known as Highway 101, is being threatened by climate change and erosion. In some places, the pavement is only a few feet from the bluff. According to a city report, this stretch of Carlsbad Boulevard is susceptible to damage from sea level rise.
And the beach is going to continue to erode.
The city's Beach Prevention Commission earlier this month recommended moving this 1-mile stretch of Carlsbad Boulevard to higher ground, retreating from the sea. The commission is presenting the plan to the city council this evening. Mitch Silverstein with the Surfrider Foundation agrees with the commission. He thinks the council should act sooner rather than later.
We want the city council to support the idea that when they realign traffic from this road, which you can see is too close to the beach, to the northbound road, we want the city to support demolishing this old road so that they can restore the beach and the adjacent wetlands.
At its lowest point, Carlsbad Boulevard is only a few feet above the beach.
As you can see right now, it's high tide and the waves are almost hitting the street. But during king tide or a severe winter storm, it actually can flood the road.
The city has been putting boulders by the road to prevent erosion, but that's not a long-term solution.
It's not really a question of if, it's a question of when we move this infrastructure back to protect the road and protect this critical corridor, and then how we do that.
The other option would be a phased approach where changes would take place incrementally over a 96-year period. Silverstein doesn't think that's a good idea.
If they're able to demolish the road at the same time as they reroute traffic, we can create a resilient beach that will be there with up to 6 feet of sea level rise.
A city spokesperson says the city only received grant funding to do the study, and the presentation today is the end product. The city council isn't expected to take any immediate action. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Connecting with people isn't always easy in an increasingly digital world, but there's a social club that meets in person just to walk and talk. KPBS video journalist Charlotte Radulovich introduces us to the San Diego Girls Who Walk.
At first glance, the smiles, giggles, and the fluid conversations might trick you into thinking that these women have known each other for a long time.
First time? No, first time. Yeah.
Most of them are actually meeting for the very first time. On this gloomy Saturday on Mission Bay, the first step was the biggest one, showing up.
I was planning on coming here last week and talked myself out of it, and I almost talked myself out of it this morning. It was really difficult, but I said, I really have to challenge myself.
Allison DeCracker says she showed up because she saw an opportunity to meet other women and make connections.
I moved here after I graduated college, and I don't think like a lot of people talk about that transition enough. And then there's no like system in place to really help you once you get there. And so I think it's like really difficult for some people because it's a big lift to get yourself out there to try to find people that connect with.
Okay, we're going to start to walk, okay? Follow me.
That's why Monica Figueroa started organizing the San Diego Girls Who Walk events. She joined a similar group back in New York, and after seeing how it positively impacted her life, she brought the concept to the West Coast.
So I bet you out of this group of girls, we've got probably like 50% of them that work remotely. So that's a really isolating part of the new post-COVID world. And then in general, I think as a generation that really spends a lot of time on social media, I know that's talked about a lot, it makes it kind of more difficult to go up and say hi to someone in person.
I find it difficult because I think with a lot of technology nowadays, it's really easy for people to be in their phones and not really pay attention to what's going on around them.
While they're walking, there are no phones, no distractions, just genuine conversations sparked by women who not only expect to take a break from the virtual platforms, but to hopefully create bonds.
We have the best weather. Every city has people moving into it. A lot of people here actually at my walks, they always say that they're new to San Diego and they're looking to make friends. We have a lot of transplants. So I just knew it would be the perfect place, and we're really lucky because it doesn't snow.
If the weather isn't an obstacle, neither is the fee. It is open to everyone from any age range and at no cost, and takes place twice a month.
And now I'm here and I met a lot of super nice people and I'm really glad I came.
The walks usually vary from 2 to 3 miles. The group posts its schedule on Instagram at San Diego Girls Who Walk. The next one will take place this upcoming Saturday. Charlotte Radulovic, KPBS News.
It's all about the music this weekend on Adams Avenue. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer says the annual Unplugged Festival will feature more than 60 live musical performances this Saturday afternoon and evening.
Inside restaurants, bars, and coffee houses, and on some patios, live original music is about to take over Normal Heights and surrounding areas for Adams Avenue Unplugged.
We have acoustic, jazz, folk, even bigger bands that they might be plugged in, but you know, there's still like kind of like an acoustic guitar base to it.
Julia Sanchez is assistant director with the Adams Avenue Business Association, who puts on the event. She's expecting at least 10,000 people to come and watch what will be mostly local acts.
Most people are from the greater San Diego area, but we do have a few that come in from LA or Northern California.
John Hawes is one half of a local band. He and his wife Kat make up the Beard and the Bird. They live in Ramona.
We kind of have different arrangements, so it's always my wife on upright bass, and I play guitar and sing and play banjo and some other stuff.
They've performed at Adams Avenue Unplugged once before and are excited to be back for another event.
Rather than big and loud and crazy, you still have a little bit of that, but it's really more focused on like the songwriting, which I think is pretty cool.
This year the festivities will begin Friday night with a film about the festival's founder, but the main event takes place from noon to midnight on Saturday across 20 different stages.
It's a huge day for all bars and restaurants. Everybody is full, and it's just so lovely to see that the impact that the event has on the businesses down Adams Avenue.
The headliner concert by California Guitar Trio and the opening night film are the only paid parts of the event. Everything else is free for people of all ages to enjoy. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Students from all over the world met in San Diego this week for the first ever academic drone soccer World Cup career fair. KPBS video journalist Matthew Bowler tells us it is like a combination of Harry Potter's Quidditch and Formula One racing.
Off your phone and go help. Go help.
Sarah Hillard teaches drones, 3D printing, and robotics at Millennial Tech Middle School, and now she's the drone soccer coach.
Drone soccer is a 5-on-5 competition, very similar to soccer in the position. So you have a forward and a striker trying to score, and then you have a keeper or a goalie.
Each match is 3 sets of competition with 3 to 5 minute long repair breaks in between.
We line up 5 on one side and 5 on the other side. The referee raises his hands and the kids arm their drones, and then they all take off.
Hillard's kids aren't new to drones, but they are new to drone soccer. She says they only had one day to learn how to fix and fly the drones.
I'm really proud of the kids here. You know, it's a lot to come to a competition where you maybe aren't going to do as well as you would like.
But the scores aren't really the point. These kids are learning and having fun.
We are the MTM Wolves. Don't be nervous.
Get ready, get excited. Pilots, get revved up and ready for flight. On your drone.
Like buzzing bees lit up with LED lights, the drones zip away, then bang into each other. Someone scores. Parents cheer. And the kids are all smiles. About 20 teams from all over the world are in town for the tournament.
Oh, there's teams from everywhere. They're from South Korea, they're from Turkey. The Colorado Westminster team has been a huge help to us.
Learning for learning's sake is enough for something like this. But the experience of flying drones has a ton of career potential.
Right now, there's thousands of jobs available, but nowhere, no professionals ready to fill them.
Crew Concept is one of the tournament's sponsors. The company trains students for aerospace jobs. Lena Paneros is a co-founder and says the whole industry suffers from a lack of diversity.
83% of the aviation-rated professionals are men.
Breaking down those barriers is exactly what students at Millennial Tech Middle are doing.
We had a little bit of problems with them at first. We got to fix them, and now, we're here. I scored 2 points today, and that was fun for me.
The tournament and career fair continue through the 25th.
It was really fun. I do recommend this to people. It's really fun.
Matthew Bowler, KPBS News.
We hope you enjoyed this look at KPBS News this week. I'm John Carroll. Thank you for joining us.